am today, and I'm not ashamed of what I did in my past because I don't live in my past. So I can talk about it openly, and I can be honest with you guys, and most importantly, I can be honest with myself and anyone that needs help. Needs to hear honesty and needs to learn how to practice that, because honesty is something that I have to practice and do in order to grow and to get better and learn how to continue to get better. Well, 19 years old, get on probation. I get off about a year and a half after that, I believe, somewhere in that area when I had paid my fines. And at 20, I met my husband, who is now my husband. We worked together, and we fell in love very quickly, and we actually were expecting before we had been dating for 6 months. Here I am, 20 years old, pregnant, no idea who I am, no idea what I want to do with my life, and I just jump right into the role of an expectant mother and a girlfriend. So my husband and I began living together, and we were not married at the time, and we were adamant about not getting married just because we had a baby on the way, because we knew a lot of people that had done that, and we just didn't want to make a mistake. So during my pregnancy, my husband took very good care of me, and we fell deeper in love, and we decided that we wanted to be together for the long run. So after our daughter was born, who is one of the greatest miracles that I've ever been gifted, after she was born, we were living together, we were raising her, and a wonderful man came over to the house and was studying with us, and he told us that it would be best if we got married. So we decided to do that, and we actually ended up doing it on my husband's birthday. So happy birthday to him. He got to get married to me, and that was over 12 years ago now. So we've been on a really wild ride since then. Neither of us knew how to love ourselves, much less how to love each other. And I'm not going to tell his story, but that is a big part of my story. My husband and I really didn't get to know each other until just a few years ago, when we actually got back together. There was some separation in our marriage, brought about by me, because we were both out of control and off the rails, and neither of us were living our lives right. And I could not handle what was happening in my life. So I decided to leave. And I'm kind of skipping around in my story a little bit, but we did have another child a couple years after we got married, when I was 24. And she's yet another one of my biggest blessings and miracles. So 2 little girls depending on us. We're raising them and half raising ourselves, have really no idea what we're doing, but we had a lot of help from our family, and our families never stopped loving us, never stopped supporting us, always wanted what was best for us. And we very rarely listen to the advice that our families gave us. But as I said, they were always there for us, and they've been a huge part in our children's lives. His parents, his sister, my parents, my sisters have been, his brother, huge part. And so I'm very thankful for them, and thankful that they never gave up on us, because we had a lot of issues, my husband and I, and a lot of my issues were with my self-image, my self-worth. Yet again, going right back to that little 6-year-old girl that didn't believe she was good enough. And so that self-rejection and what really grew into self-loathing was at the core of everything that I did. And I began to live a Jekyll and Hyde life, where I was pretending most of the time to be what I thought people wanted me to be. I do think that I was growing a little bit along the way, but most of it was just acting and pretending. And when I finally was able to let down my guard and be vulnerable, it was really with one person, and it was my husband. And so the more that the lies grew and the pretending to be what I wasn't, the more that this type of monster grew inside of me. And I really did start to refer to it as a monster. I felt like one. when I came home after pretending to the entire world that I was this stand-up citizen, perfect mom, perfect wife, perfect person, which doesn't exist, by the way. And I'm so grateful that I know that today. But after pretending to be that person all day, I would come home and just let Mr. Hyde, the monster, out. And it really became what I believe was torturous, just projecting that self-hatred and self-loathing and self-rejection onto my husband. And nothing he ever did for me was good enough. And, I don't want to spill out all of my dirty laundry, but it was not a healthy relationship. I will say that, And one thing about my husband is that he fell in love with me from a very early stage in our relationship, and he never has given up on me. So he's a wonderful gift, another miracle that my higher power has given me. And I'm very thankful for him. And I'm thankful that we were brought back together about 3 years ago. And that's when we really began to get to know the real us. Because when we were apart, both of us learned self-acceptance, self-love, and we're still building on that. So I'm going to have a lot of sessions about each of these things individually. Forgiveness, growth, self-love, healing, addiction, recovery more than addiction, because I like to focus more on recovery than addiction. But a lot of those things we're going to be talking about on Converse with Coco. So make sure you do tune in, and I'd love to hear your comments. Let me know what you would like me to speak on. But back to the story, at the age of 29, I was miserable. And I felt this overwhelming urge to escape. And I didn't know if it was to escape this town, to escape my job, to escape my marriage, to escape my family, or to escape this life. But I did know that deep down inside, if I didn't do something, that it would harbor into an urge to escape this life. And that really scared me, because I actually love life, and even then, in all of the chaos, I still found many, many moments where I loved my life, and I did enjoy the gifts that I had been given, and I was grateful, but I wanted to keep them, and I wanted the self-hatred to stop. I wanted the beating up of myself mentally to stop, the trying to beat myself into submission, and trying on my own will for years and years to turn away from this substance that I could not get away from. I wanted to find a way that didn't include operating on my own self-will, and that's exactly what I found when I was 29 years old. And it started with admitting to my mother that I felt this urge to escape. And she said, "You need to stop doing what you've been doing. You need to stop partaking in this substance. You need to spend more time with your family. Basically, you need to grow up." And I let her rant, and I said, "Thank you for the advice," when she was done. And she said, "You're probably not going to take it." She had good reason to say that, because I very rarely took advice from my family. And I hung up that phone and I told myself, okay, watch me. I'm going to take someone's advice. I'm actually going to take a suggestion. And I discovered a organization that I will not name, but it saved my life. It has introduced me to the real me, to God, who loves me so much, never turned his back on me, never once. I turned away from him, and he still took care of me and kept me safe. It has introduced me to so many wonderful people, to a way of life that is beyond my wildest dreams. And that's what works for me. So another thing I'm going to talk about on Converse with Coco is finding and using what works for you. So that is when my journey began, was when I was 29 years old. And it has just gotten better from there when I have engaged in that journey, when I have decided to partake in my own recovery, in my own self-growth and self-love. So I got a lot more stories where that came from, and I want to share with you guys a lot that I've learned, but I'm going to go ahead and end it here for tonight. And I want to say once again, thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.